Imagine walking along the Nile 3,000 years ago. You see colossal temples carved with hieroglyphs praising the gods Ra, Osiris, Isis. Priests in spotless white robes lead processions, chanting hymns older than memory. This is the Egypt everyone knows, the Egypt of tourists, textbooks, and museum halls. But this glittering facade hid a shadow world, a world of secret ceremonies no commoner was allowed to see. Because ancient Egypt wasn't just a religion, it was an entire technology of magic, designed to control life, death, and even the gods themselves. Priests weren't humble servants of the divine. They were gatekeepers of cosmic order, trained to command spirits, curse enemies, and pierce the veil between life and death. Why such secrecy? Because these rituals were dangerous. Knowledge was power, and power had to be controlled. Temple walls showed sanitized versions of rites to impress the public. But deeper inside, behind closed doors, within crypty-like sanctuaries, priests performed rites so unsettling they were rarely written down at all. And what little was recorded survived only in fragments, spells on papyrus, cryptic tomb inscriptions, warnings scrawled in ancient Greek and Coptic centuries later. These sources hint at a civilization obsessed with death and resurrection, that viewed the underworld not just as an afterlife, but as a hidden realm to be explored while alive. Today, historians and Egyptologists are piecing together this forbidden Egypt from scattered clues. They reveal a society where magic wasn't superstition but a state-sanctioned science, carefully controlled, jealously guarded, and sometimes terrifyingly effective. Not every priest could access Egypt's darkest secrets. The process of initiation was itself a kind of trial, physical, psychological, and spiritual. Ancient sources describe the opening of the mouth ritual as the gateway not only for the dead, but for the living. Priests seeking higher ranks underwent a symbolic death and rebirth, designed to open their senses to divine truth. In these ceremonies, initiates were led into pitch-black chambers, fasting, chanting, and inhaling heavy resins and opiate fumes. It was said that in these trances they could speak with the gods or be driven mad by what they saw. One of the most chilling aspects was ritual scarification. Egyptologists believe certain high priests carried hidden scars bearing sacred hieroglyphs or images of protective deities cut into their skin during these rites. It was a reminder of their covenant. They were marked forever as servants of the gods. This wasn't public religion. It was a hidden priestly technology designed to preserve power within a closed caste. Because in ancient Egypt, religion wasn't separate from politics. To control the gods was to control the kingdom. Egypt's fascination with the afterlife is legendary. But what most people don't realize is that priests didn't just prepare the dead for the duat, they sought to visit it themselves. The amjuat, a funerary text inscribed in royal tombs, wasn't just a map for the deceased pharaoh. It was a manual for the living priesthood to navigate the underworld's treacherous passageways in visions and dreams. How? Through elaborate rituals that mimicked death itself. Initiates fasted for days, lay inside coffins, inhaled psychoactive substances like blue lotus and opium mixtures. Chants from temple walls were recited in darkness, evoking gods like Osiris and Anubis. Ancient sources tell of priests emerging from these rites claiming they had seen the serpent Apophis face to face and survived, that they had walked the 12 hours of the night and returned with knowledge forbidden to ordinary mortals. This practice wasn't just spiritual, it was political. By mastering the duat, priests claimed the power to control rebirth, guarantee resurrection, and justify the pharaoh's divine rule. Egypt's magic wasn't always about healing or protection. Sometimes it was a weapon. The execration texts unearthed from Desert Pits reveal one of the most chilling state rituals, cursing enemies of Egypt. Priests shaped clay figures of foreign kings, traitors, rebels, even entire enemy armies. They inscribed their names in red ink, the color of chaos and destruction. During the ritual, they spoke curses aloud, bound the figurines with cords, smashed them to pieces, or burned them in sacrificial flames. This wasn't folk magic. These pits have been found near major temples like Karnak, proving this was sanctioned by the highest religious authorities. The goal? To destroy the Kotha spiritual essence of Egypt's enemies, ensuring their defeat in battle or death by plague. It was psychological warfare, spiritual terrorism, and political propaganda rolled into one. Imagine living in that world, where the state didn't just send armies but priests who claimed they could kill you with words. One of the most remarkable discoveries about Egypt's magical tradition comes from the Greek magical papyri. These papyri, compiled in Greco-Roman times, preserve Egyptian spells that survive despite official suppression. They include love charms, healing prayers, but also terrifying rites of necromancy, spells that called upon dead spirits to reveal secrets, instructions to summon the shadowy ba of a corpse, bind it with oaths, and force it to speak. The rituals required blood, hair, or nail clippings, personal relics, to tie the spirit to the magician's will. Ancient priests warned that such magic was dangerous even to the caster, who risked madness, possession, or death. Egyptologists believe these traditions evolved from older native practices, once jealously guarded in temple libraries. And while public religion offered comforting images of the afterlife, the priesthood kept these darker rites hidden tools of power for those willing to risk their souls. If Egypt had a core myth, it was the murder and resurrection of Osiris. Public festivals reenacted his death at the hands of Set, his dismemberment, and Isis's magical resurrection of him. But some rituals were not for public view. Priestly sources hint at secret killings of sacred animals to represent Set's crime. These sacrificial rites were highly choreographed, with priests chanting to imitate Set's violence and then reversing it to restore Mat, the divine order. Spell 151 of the Book of the Dead describes the slaughterers of the god, priests tasked with reenacting cosmic violence to keep chaos at bay. Scholars debate how literal these sacrifices were. While no direct evidence of human sacrifice survives from most periods of Egyptian history, fragmentary records suggest it may have existed in Egypt's earliest dynasties before being ritualized with animals. What's certain is that this ritual violence was considered essential. Without it, the cosmos itself risked collapsing into chaos. Egypt's most famous ritual was mummification. But it wasn't just preservation, it was magic. The embalmers didn't see themselves as morticians but as priests of Anubis, performing rites to transform the corpse into an eternal being. They wore jackal masks to become the god himself. Each cut, each anointing with resins, each wrapping was accompanied by spells designed to protect the ba and ka of the deceased. The opening of the mouth ceremony at the end wasn't just a symbolic gesture. It was believed to literally restore the senses for the afterlife, enabling the dead to eat, speak, and defend themselves against demons in the dua. Even the canopic jars weren't mere containers. They were guarded by protective deities to ensure the owner's survival in the next world. For commoners who couldn't afford full mummification, cheap versions of these spells were sold on papyrus scrolls, evidence of a spiritual economy driven by fear of the afterlife. All of this, the curses, the underworld journeys, the blood rites, the necromancy, the embalming magic, served one purpose: to control death itself. In a land where the Nile flooded and receded in eternal cycles, life and death weren't opposites but parts of the same divine equation. The priests of Egypt claimed mastery over this equation. They were scientists of the soul, engineers of the afterlife, wielders of the oldest and most dangerous power humans have ever sought, the power to conquer death. And that, more than any pyramid or temple, was ancient Egypt's greatest secret. If you want more revelations about history's forbidden rituals, don't forget to subscribe.